Hey YouTube, Kevin Cleary with a knife video for you. Today I have a knife that I've been really enjoying using and carrying and cutting with, and I have sharpened it. We'll speak to that when I get to blade. This is the Manix 2 Lightweight. This is the current version of it in the S110V with the dark blue scale. Looks like there's this and then the black scale that is still kind of see-through the way the original one was in the BD1 steel. All right. I don't think that this is a sprint run or a limited run. I think this is just going to be the regular production version of this at this point. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty satisfied that that's the case, especially if you look in Spyderco's current catalog. Okay, now this knife is very lightweight. By the way, just so you know, you guys have seen my video and some comparison videos with the Manix 2XL, and I totally love that blade. One of my favorite Spydercos. Now, because I love it so much, I really wanted to check out the smaller version, and I think this is suitable for, you know, some scenarios, some situations where the larger one isn't that great. The weather's getting warmer now, and so it's like I need to carry something lighter if I'm wearing lighter clothing, lighter material. Also for like running or hiking or any of that kind of stuff, you may want a blade with you that doesn't weigh quite as much as the standard Manix, or even or especially the Manix 2 XL. Okay, not that it's an overly heavy blade for what it is. Now, the specs on this, or the size and weight on this, is 8 inches overall, 3 3/8 inch blade, 4 5/8 inch handles. So really good size, and it's right there in my sort of wheelhouse. You guys know I prefer larger blades. I would consider this like the small end of my EDC desires. I wouldn't want to carry anything much smaller than this, although I know the blur is a little smaller. The blade length makes up for it. It's got actually more cutting edge than this. Okay, so very good size and weight, exceptionally good size and weight. Certainly large enough to be capable of pretty much anything you need, while being at the same time, you know, not overly large so that people are going to be bothered if you pull your knife out. Not overly large, you couldn't pull it out, you know, you could take this out in McDonald's, say, and cut up your kid's apple or whatever, and I don't think anyone would be terribly concerned about that, okay? Now, let's get into this blade. The blade, of course, is S110V. Let's zoom in for this portion so you can kind of take a look at what I'm talking about, and I can be a little more specific. Come on, camera. There we go. Okay, so there is the knife in a little closer view, and we'll go ahead and talk about this blade. It is S110V blade steel. It is Spyderco's typical leaf shape or spear point or drop point, whatever you want to call it. Spyderco, of course, always uses that leaf shape designation. It is a full flat grind, and of course, as I've said over and over again, a full flat grind is just really useful. And you know, if you're doing like food prep, or if you're doing cardboard cutting, or if you're doing, you know, opening packages, preparing wood, like doesn't matter what you're doing, full flat grind does it pretty well. You know, is it the best for everything? Probably not. There are situations where I prefer a hollow grind, but it does everything well enough, okay? It's just, it really excels at versatility, and that's what we really like about a full flat grind. Quite a sharp point, and that, of course, is the weakness of a lot of Spydercos. Could you break this off if you were using it wrong? Absolutely, you could. Typical Spydercos often have, you know, anything with a full flat grind often has a very fine point, and therefore is prone to breaking on you, okay? This blade steel, S110V, is a very high hardness blade steel, and I will say I've sharpened this. It's not that easy, okay? It's not the end of the world. I'm not suggesting that, oh man, you shouldn't buy it because once you get it dull, you never get it sharp again. It's sharpenable. Just expect to spend a little more time than you would with S30V, okay? And with S30V, I'd say expect to spend a little more time than you would with AUS8. And so if all you've ever sharpened is like HCR13 and AUS8, then jumping right to this, you're going to be like, holy smokes, this is ridiculous. But if you've got some S30V blades, if you've got some S35VN blades, different things like that, you kind of know what it takes to sharpen a higher quality steel or a higher hardness level steel. And so you can expect a little bit of a tougher time, but it will take a nice edge and it will hold that edge very, very well. Okay, that's the bright side of it. It is excellent edge holding capability, and I mean excellent. As usual, it comes very sharp from Spyderco, and as usual, because of the edge geometry, it's fairly easy to get a really crazy, ridiculous edge on this knife. Alright, so blade is very good for all kinds of everyday cutting tasks, and certainly is going to do pretty much anything you would need it to do. Is this a sort of a combat knife? I would probably say not, just due to its length. Okay, not that this couldn't do a lot of damage to someone, it certainly could. And of course, in a last-ditch scenario, you know, whether you're, you know, hanging upside down out of a helicopter and need to cut the cords that are hanging you in the roof up, whether you're attacked by a wild animal or whatever, you know, you're going to use that blade in any capacity you really need it in. It would be nice to know that it was made for that, but they're not all made for that. And this one is more suited to everyday carry tasks, like what I said about the Endura. Okay, it's not meant to be taken out and thumped on, but it's certainly tough enough to do what it needs to do. The lockup and deployment on this is actually quite good. Notice that, you know, I can spider flick it pretty easily. It does drop nicely. It does take a little bit of a shake. Let me do that one more time for you so you can see. There you go. The lock is, well, now it dropped immediately. But there you go. Generally speaking, it takes a little shake to get it to drop. Not much. And away it goes. Certainly, it's easy to actuate both closed and open. And if you want to, let's say you're worried about a knife that drops too freely, notice it will stay where it's put. Okay, so that's nice, because if you're doing something and you want to, you know, you've got the knife halfway closed and you don't want it to drop closed on a finger, it won't do that. It does take a little bit of effort to get it to move. Now, the lock is the caged ball lock. It's a very, very strong lock. However, got to remember that this handle is plastic. Okay, so no, the knife is not going to close on you. Should you go spine whacking this and go batoning through trees and everything else? No, you shouldn't. You're going to cause damage to the knife. Okay, a folding knife really isn't meant to be used that way. As I've said before, you probably would get away with it with a triad lock. I have actually chopped with a triad lock and had no issues afterward. Not so with this knife. Okay, the caged ball lock is very good though. Locks up nice and strong. And if you really need that extra strength, if you're concerned about that, go with the standard version of the Manix that has the stainless steel liners. Okay, that's, you know, you're not adding a huge amount of weight, and they're still a great knife, because, you know, in terms of ergonomics and blade shape and all that kind of stuff, the regular Manix is going to do everything this does. It's just in a different steel. Okay, so my comments about this specific steel won't hold up, but my comments about the blade shape and usefulness, that's all the same. All right, let's move on to the handle. This is an FRN handle, and it does have the bidirectional texturing. It's good. Okay, it's comfortable in hand. I've done quite a bit of cutting with this. My hand naturally goes to this position on this blade. Some knives, and I've showed you this before, I naturally want to choke up on it. This knife I have choked up on and used it this way. It's nice to have that option of the front finger choil, but I rarely use it. I find myself generally holding the knife like this. Notice that even for a small knife, I can get my whole hand on it, and that's one of the things I look for. One of the things that really bothers me, and often I'll end up getting rid of a knife, if I can't get a good grip on it, even though it may be totally functional and even though it's fine, it just bothers me to a certain degree when I can't get a hold of a knife fully the way I want to. Okay, now, it is pinned construction. The Torx bit is only here in the pivot screw, so you can adjust the pivot. By the way, I should have said this under lockup and deployment. I flip this all the time. It flips really well. And some knives, if you flip them all the time, that pivot eventually works its way loose. I haven't messed with this pivot at all since I got it. Almost like 80% of the knives that I own, I have to take the screw out, put Loctite on it, and set it where I want it. I have not had to adjust this at all. It's never moved. It's developed no play at all in any direction over time. So that's really, really nice, especially I think for most of us buying a lightweight knife, we're concerned about strength and we're concerned about the quality of that lockup, and this is very, very good. All right, now notice as we're talking about the handle, you can get a little bit of flex. You should be able to see that moving just gently on camera. It'll flex a little bit. Certainly you don't notice it when you're cutting. If you squeeze really hard, I guess I can kind of feel it moving, but not a whole lot. This is also certainly passable in reverse grip for like draw cutting if you wanted to pull the knife this way towards you on, you know, you're cutting some kind of material. Anyway, so it'll work that way just fine. Finally, let's talk about this pocket clip. It is reversible to left side or right side, only tip up carry, which is great, and it is a wire clip. This wire clip is really nice, and I love this. There's a few clips, you know, that I want to sort of recommend. This kind of clip is great, okay? It's small, it does its job, but it doesn't make a big deal, okay? The Kershaw Knockout is, again, a great example. The Zero Tolerance, the clip that's on like the 0560, the clip that's on the 0562, the clips that are just, they do their job, they're understated, and those are the ones that I really like. I'm not a fan of these giant pocket clips that are like display to the world that you've got something in your pocket. So this is really, really good, very functional. And of course it does help with keeping the weight down because it's just a piece of wire. So, oh yeah, one last thing, lanyard hole on this is massive. Now I don't do lanyards on my knives, but holy cow, like you could fit a full piece of nylon rope through this hole and have no problem at all. It's a very large lanyard hole. So if you're into lanyards, you can definitely, you can even do the thing where you double up your paracord, put it through and use that loop. That would work just fine on this blade. Okay, so that kind of gives you the specific stuff. Let's see if I can back up here a little. That gives you most of the specifics about this blade. Let's talk about overall usefulness. I think this is a great knife. If you just need something that's a general use EDC, especially this version, if you want something that you're not going to have to sharpen a lot, this is great. I would recommend that you be somewhat proficient at sharpening because it's S110V. It's a pretty hard steel. It's not for the faint of heart. All right, so you just kind of know going in that, hey, you can sharpen it. It just takes a little more time and energy than you're maybe used to. Great knife for someone who runs, who hikes, who jogs, who does mountain climbing. You want to carry a knife with you, but you don't want it to be adding a lot of weight to your loadout. Another great option is, and I have used it this way, let's say you're carrying something larger. You're carrying a 0560, you're carrying a large Espada, you're carrying a Recon 1. You want to carry something else that can be a little smaller, a little more people-friendly, but you don't want, you don't want two 5-ounce knives. You want something very lightweight that you're hardly going to notice. This is a very, very good option for that. You could even carry this in the bottom of a pocket. Now it would have to be a larger pocket, but you could carry this in the bottom of a pocket, and even there it would not be a big issue. Okay, so overall, very useful blade. It's not, I would say, a hard use knife. It's not meant for combat or for bushcrafting or those type of things, but it's going to do all your EDC tasks very well. Really cool design. It's a nice looking blade. Certainly there's some pride of ownership with this knife because of the fact that it's a very high-end steel, very good functioning. By the way, one of the things I've seen that's pretty cool, and I really like this idea, although it's expensive, I've seen a number of people who bought this blade, bought this knife, and had a standard Manix and switched the blades out. So now they've got their standard Manix that they really like because of its strength with a super steel for the blade. Okay, and the fact that people have done that says something about, this blade and how much they like the knife in general. So overall, yeah, great little blade. I don't really have any major complaints about this. As I said, if you're not into the lightweight version, now because I have the Manix 2 XL, I've got all the size and strength and capability I need. I didn't need another high strength Manix, so this is perfect for me. There are lots of other comparable blades, very few though at this price point with this high quality of steel. But anyway, yeah, great knife. Overall, I really like it. I don't think, let's put it this way. As I look at this knife, is there anything that makes me warn you and say, hey, be careful about buying this. You may really hate this, that, or the other. No. The feel in hand would be the only thing. I did have a friend pick it up and said, compared to a lot of your other knives, this one feels kind of cheap. And it's the same criticism that's been leveled at the Griptilian and lots of knives that have the FRN scales sort of get that criticism, okay? I don't find it to be that way. And of course, once you start using it and you realize that, hey, I've used this for all kinds of crazy stuff and then haven't had a problem with it, you kind of get over that initial impression. Okay, so there you go, guys. That's my take on the Spyderco Manix 2 lightweight. Really cool little blade. I like the look of this handle material, and it's cool to have in your pocket a knife with S110V blade steel, especially at the price point that these guys come in at, which I think is about $100. All right, talk to you later.